Okay, so it's time to pick the cherries. I told you yesterday that I would give you an update on what I was going to do with them. I'm going to turn this around so you can see the cherries. See, these are pie cherries, also known as tart cherries. They are super good for, obviously, pies and baking, but they also have properties that are good for immunity, sleep, aches, pains, all sorts of things. And I'll tell you more about those when we're processing them. But until then, we get to picking, and when we pick the cherries off, just off the stem. We leave the stem. We try not to pull off the leaves because that can leave wounds on the tree that can cause infection. So we're going to do our best to just get the cherries. Before we get started, I'm going to give the chickens their cherries so that they will leave us alone. There they are. They like their cherries. Okay, so I have a batch of cherries here, and for this batch, I'm going to juice it. And with the juice, I will can it later and then use it for either syrup or juice or popsicles or gummy bears. The juice is just very, very versatile. That way I can use it for anything I want later on down the line. But the first thing I'm going to do is I've already rinsed these off. And then over here I have a pressure cooker with a strainer. And I'm going to put about a cup of water at the bottom of it just to get some really good steam going. And then I'm going to fill my little strainer with the cherries. Okay, so I filled the strainer with all my cherries. I'm going to put the lid on. Sorry. Tighten it down. Make sure the spout's closed. And then I'm going to plug it in. Pressure cooker is great for juice. You can also get a juicer, but if you can't afford a juicer, the pressure cooker does so much. I have like 3 of them and I keep them going all the time. So I'm going to start this and I'm going to put it on for about 25 minutes. And start it. So that's what that is. And next I will show you what I do with the juice. Okay, this is what the cherries look like after they've been cooked down. And so what we're going to remove the basket of the cherries. And I usually put it over another pan so that the cherries can drip into that and still save some more juice. I will take a lot of the cherries that are all done and I will feed the skins to my chickens. They love that. Okay, so I'm going to pull the juice out of the pressure cooker and I'm going to pour it through this colander into a pitcher. Be very careful, it can be very hot. I'm going to leave it in this pitcher for a little while to cool, and then I am going to put it into jars to can for later use. Like I said, I can use it for popsicles, syrup, just drinking, or my grandson wants gummy bears, so we're going to make gummy bears. And sour cherries are super good for muscle soreness, sleep, antioxidants. There's just a whole wide variety of things that the sour cherries are really good for, not to mention they're good for pies. Well, that's all we got for that right now, and then we will can this later. Okay, so when you're canning juice, you can use whatever size jar you want. I'm going to use the pints right here because this is just what's the easiest to show you guys how to do it, and that way, you know, I don't have to open a whole lot at any one time. So make sure your jars are sterilized and clean. Throw them in the dishwasher, and then you are going to fill your jars up to just to the first line of the jar. You want to leave some room in there for breathing and boiling. And then you want to make sure that the tops of your jars are clean. You don't want anything keeping the seal from breaking. And then the lids, you need to soak or boil them so that the gum around the edge of the lids get a little bit gummy. That way they'll stick better. Then you're going to stick them on top of your jars and tighten them down really good. If you have a pressure cooker, you can put them in the pressure cooker and put about, halfway up the jars of water. If you don't have a pressure cooker, you can boil them on the stove. Just make sure that your jars are covered with water and that you put something at the bottom, kind of like the lids, jar lids or something like that, to keep it off the bottom so that they don't break. And then you're going to boil it for 20 minutes. And then when you pull them out, when they go pop, then they're sealed. So, okay, the other thing I do with the cherries is I pit them and I put them on a tray. First I put some parchment paper down and then I put them on a tray. I just buy stacks of the old lunch school trays. They work great. They're plastic, they're nice and firm, and they last forever. I put a little piece of parchment down and then I layer one layer of my fruit on the tray, and then I'm going to cover it with my lunch tray, and then I'm gonna stack, and I can stack as many as I want on top of each other. And then I take the whole stack and I put it in the freezer until they're solid. This is called flash freezing. So when you put them in your storage bags afterwards, they won't stick together when you bring them out, and you can take as much or as little as you want out at a time. So these are going into the freezer, and I'll show you what I do with them when they come out. Alright, the cherries are flash frozen, and as you can see, they're not going to stick together anymore. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I have a food saver. Everybody should have a food saver. This keeps all the air out and it's more compact for your food. I'm going to fill this bag up with the cherries and seal it, and back into the freezer they go. So here's the finished bag. Make sure you always label and date your products so you know which ones to use first. Put it back in the freezer and you can take it out, use it for pies, baking, juice, whatever you want to use it for. Thanks.